Hi, I'm Liz Earle and welcome to the Earle Wellbeing YouTube channel if this is the first time that you have joined me here. I am recording a short series on the perimenopause and menopause because I get asked so many questions across my social media platforms, Instagram, Twitter, just you name it, emails that just pour in all the time from midlife women who literally are at their wits' end. They are confused, they don't know what to expect, they're worried about symptoms, they've heard all sorts of rumours about HRT, is it safe, is it not safe? And so I thought that I would come and I would record just a short series talking about my own experience and sharing some of the evidence-based information that I have gathered over the years through my work at Earle Wellbeing with my magazine and my podcasts and my website. So just as a bit of background, for those of you who don't know, I started life as a health and beauty writer, as a journalist, 35 years ago, obviously as a very small child, clearly, because otherwise the math doesn't work, does it? Now, I started at a magazine called Woman's Journal back in the day, and I just loved research and writing. And from there, I went to write books. My first book was all about fats and oils in the diet, called Vital Oils. That was published around 30 years ago. It's crazy. And it was a bit of counterculture then because everybody was writing about low fat and how important low fat is. And actually, I had done my research and realized that high fat and healthy fats are the really good things that we need to stay fit and well. And interestingly, that's kind of really come around now, 30 years on. Obviously, there's a lot more talk about the value of high fat and low sugar, and we now know that dietary sugars are the real sort of baddie in the mix rather than good quality fats. And actually, the link with hormones and menopause is really important because we make hormones in the body and we make them from fat. So particularly for midlife women, going on a low-fat diet or a low-fat eating regime is a really bad idea because we need good quality fats. We need cholesterol, which is like the mothership, which is then creating all the other hormones using dietary fats. So that's one reason why eating good quality fats is really important. But from writing for magazines, I then wrote many books and all about health and well-being and wellness and nutrition back in the day, kind of before it was a thing. And so now, having moved away from the beauty company many years ago and going back into my first passion, which is well-being and wellness, it's really amazing to have this space, which is just so important for so many people for so many reasons. I mean, obviously we're living longer, so we want to live well. It's all about having life in our years and not just years added to our life. And then, of course, at a time of global pandemic, when things like support for our immune system comes to the fore, it's never more important to have these conversations. And then throw into the mix hormonal changes and shifts that happen as we age. So for me, my journey writing about the menopause started about 5 or 6 years ago when I was asked to write a book on menopause. And it ended up being this book, The Good Menopause Guide, which was a #1 bestseller. It went straight to #1 on all books on Amazon the first day that it was published, which actually was International Women's Day, which was kind of an appropriate thing. And in it, I learned a huge amount myself when I was researching it, because for me, personally speaking, my own menopause experience was very blurred because I had a baby very late in life. I had a baby in my late 40s. So all those kind of hormonal shifts and patterns and changes that can happen in your 40s, for me, were blurred by pregnancy and breastfeeding and all of that kind of thing that went on afterwards. So I turned to a lot of medics and academics and researchers when I came to research the Good Menopause Guide. And one of the things that really stood out for me amongst all of this was how little information there is out there. And even though I've been writing about health and well-being for 35 years, I really wasn't familiar with the term perimenopause, for example. And perimenopause is that time leading up to menopause. So just to give you a very quick definition, clinically, menopause it stands for menstruation pausing. So it's the time when periods stop or pause. And clinically, it is 1 year, 12 months after the date of your last period. Well, obviously periods can be very sporadic, they can come and go. It's very hard to know exactly, when am I menopausal? When am I post-menopausal? And then you say, well, what about perimenopause? What is this? Well, perimenopause, very simply, are the years leading up to that date of menopause when periods finally stop, finished, finito. And estrogen, which is the dominant driver here. So estrogen is the female hormone that runs women, okay? We run on estrogen. It's all over our bodies. We have estrogen receptors in our brains, on our skin, throughout our body, in our bones, everywhere. It really is. It's the hormone that drives women. And what happens during perimenopause is estrogen starts to decline until it really tails off, which is what is causing the menopause, when our periods stop. However, it's not a tap. We don't just switch off estrogen and bang, overnight, that's it, we're in menopause. No, our estrogen levels go up and down and they fluctuate, and some days or weeks they're quite strong, other days or weeks not so much. And that gradual decline in estrogen usually happens on average in our 40s. Now, for some women it can happen a lot earlier. It's not unheard of for it to happen in your late 20s, 30s. So be aware for hormonal changes, and I'll describe some of the symptoms in a minute. Or it can happen later. It may not happen until your early 50s. But be assured, for women, all women, their estrogen will start to decline at some point. So what does this mean in reality? Well, when our estrogen declines, all those receptors all over the body, which I've just talked about, lose their estrogen. And this has physiological impact. So if you look at estrogen receptors in the brain, once we lose that estrogen, all kinds of changes, neurological changes, can happen. So we might find that we have a decline in cognitive function. We might find that we become a bit more irrational. We might find that we lose our memory. We start doing weird things like, putting our car keys in the fridge, or forgetting where we put things, or not being able to recall dates and times. And that is due to the estrogen receptors losing their estrogen. And it's a real worry, and it's a big concern for a lot of people. Some people think that they are becoming clinically depressed because their mood lowers. They might be prescribed antidepressants, which is wrong, because there's no evidence that antidepressants work for the loss of estrogen in the brain. Very good for clinical depression, but not for menopausal symptoms. They are often confused with things like early signs of dementia or Alzheimer's. Really scary for women who are going through this, who don't realise that they're losing estrogen in their brains. For me, I can remember looking back in my 40s, and I had the most crippling headaches, and I thought it was due to stress. I was living a real stressful life, and doing a lot of international traveling and juggling work and kids and all these things that so often happens for women in their 40s. They might be the sandwich generation, if you like, looking after elderly relatives and younger family, and having a stressful time at work because they've reached, perhaps a more senior position at work, or having trouble with their relationships at home. So all these factors, when you get headaches and you feel stressed, or you feel confused, or you have a low mood, you just think, yeah, well, that's because, I'm stressed, I'm busy, I have a busy, full life, without connecting the dots, joining up the dots to say, hold on a minute, what is happening to the estrogen in my brain? And that's just one area. Okay, I talked about estrogen receptors in our bones. So many women experience achy joints and stiffness, and they might go to the doctor, and they might be sent to a rheumatologist or given some kind of, anti-arthritis medication, without realizing that actually it's your estrogen receptors in your bones that are crying out for estrogen. Early onset osteoporosis, for example, can really be improved and helped and delayed, and in many cases reversed, by topping up the estrogen in our bones. So that's an area that I'm going to be talking about later in the series, particularly is about bone health. And then, of course, there's the traditional ones that we know about, things like it's hot flushes. Well, it's not all about hot flushes. Trust me, I've never had a hot flush in my life, but the thing that sent me running to the doctor for HRT was my lack of sleep. I just couldn't sleep. I would wake up at 4 a.m. and my heart would be racing. And I was thinking, what is this? Am I stressed? Am I anxious? Why am I not sleeping? And for me, I was really fortunate because I was in my early 50s when I was writing this book. So I was able to connect with lots of experts, and it was a lot of my own experience was mirroring what I was writing about in the book. And one of the doctors that I came across, who I'm sure if you follow me on social media, you will absolutely have heard me talk about, is Dr. Louise Newson, who is, in my opinion, the forefront menopause doctor in the UK and works tirelessly to help women, not only educate women, but also works training doctors. She's written training programs for the NHS. She's working at Cambridge University on medical courses, because so few doctors actually are thoroughly trained in menopause and they just don't pick up the signs. So the chances are, if you're in perimenopause and you go to your doctor and you talk about low mood, anxiety, depression, lack of sleep, racing heartbeat, achy joints, many won't connect the dots and say, oh, you are perimenopausal. So in my next episode, I'm going to talk about really how to take this journey on, how to move the conversation on, why I became such a fan of HRT, how I became totally convinced of its safety and usefulness and benefits for women. And I'll be talking about some of the many other symptoms, because as I said, there are so many more than just hot flushes. Some of the things that may be affecting you are things like dizziness and vertigo, a burning sensation in the mouth, dry skin, itching, recurrent UTIs, pelvic infections, urinary incontinence. There was just so many. And of course, the hot flushes. Anyway, I hope that you found this little brief introduction useful. I'm going to try and make this a series of 6, so that I hope that you will subscribe and then you'll get a notification just as soon as I can record the next one. Anyway, go well and leave me a comment and let me know what you'd like me to cover in the next episodes. Thank you. Bye-bye.